Oh, hi. This week I am very sick, if you cannot tell by my luscious voice. I'm also obviously in a different location than usual. I was trying to film in my studio. I decided to come to the place I'm cat sitting and hang out here. Also so the cats get a little bit more company while their parents are gone. They can be a little talkative sometimes though, so maybe you'll hear them, but obviously nowhere near as loud as Mr. Bert can be. So, speaking of Bert, if any of you don't know, he is my dog. He's a mini dachshund. He's a little bean. And one of y'all actually helped me name him because we just called him Stink Bean for the first week that we had him. And I was so tempted to just name him Stink legally, have that be his government name. We settled on Bertie Bot because he is a bean. And that means anytime I see red and white striped things, especially when they're vertical, it makes me think of the packaging from the beans. It looks like a circus tent kind of thing. So initially, I was gonna make like a lino block print tote bag with this fabric, and I still could do it. There's plenty left. But I wanted to use the one I carved of Bert giving some side-eye. But I've made so many oversized tote bags, and I just wanted to switch it up and do something different. So that turned into me doing this roll top rucksack, if that's what we can call it. If you have a better term for this, if this has like a proper name other than adventure bag, please let me know. This one does have a round bottom, where the ones I've seen over the years, it's like a normal kind of more rectangular squared off bottom backpack with a rolled top to it. I just followed my impulses today because otherwise I would have had zero motivation to get anything done. I barely got through this project, and there were other things I wanted to do. There is a really exciting project in the works that honestly, I made the thing like a year ago, and we started planning to make the thing about 2 years ago, and for some reason I got really self-conscious about asking for final product photos, and so almost 2 years later I finally have some final product photos for a very, very cool video that I will have out sometime before the end of the year. Was gonna work on it this week, but feeling as I am, I don't feel like I will do it service at this current juncture in time. And it's very cool, I promise, especially if you are at all into Threadbanger, and I will leave the spoilers at that. All right, anyway, on to the project I actually ended up doing. I found these fabrics at a thrift store. There's this like thin red and white pinstripe fabric that's kind of canvasy, like a thicker woven, and then I have this almost like red and black camouflage type print that's like slightly heavier than quilting weight cotton, and I used those two as the outer and the lining fabric respectively. And then I also decided to add a interlining of quilting batting. The lining, the quilting batting, and the outer fabric all got a rectangle that's going to get sewn into a tube, cut out, and then a circle for the bottom panel cut out. The outer fabric additionally got 2 arm straps that were 30 inches long, 2 5-inch long straps that were going to hold D-rings that the arm straps would attach to each side. So 2 straps, 2 little loops, and then I cut 1 7-inch loop to go over. I'm doing it like the backpack has a neck, but the bit you loop along the top to like hang it over a door or something. That loop was about 7 inches. And you know how I got these numbers is because rather than just come up with random lengths for things like I did on my mini backpack video, that ended up being too short, because wouldn't you know it, just because the backpack is mini doesn't mean the arms going through the straps on the backpack are gonna be mini. I have regrets. I love how that bag turned out in every other aspect. I didn't want to make that mistake again. So I took an already existing bag that I had and measured out how long all of those straps were. And because it was kind of a pain to get the length of the arm straps, I just took the ribbon that ended up being my like toggle closure bit. Hello, kitty. Someone came to say hello. This is Roxy, such a good girl. So if you hear purring and see a tail floating by, that is what it is. Oh, she's climbing inside the backpack that I made. Can you hear her purring? Hi, sweet girl. So cute. Anyway, I have this ribbon that I ended up using for the closure, and I just used that. Like I walked it along the length of the arm straps, wound it around wherever that strapping went, and then laid that ribbon out flat along the measuring surface so that I got a number easier that way instead of trying to like finagle the backpack around. I'm sure I could have guessed and made it work, but this felt like I was doing some proper math you know? And yes, I have this pattern that I have from this just like random round bottom drawstring bag thing. I have used this to make a duffel bag before, where I used the rectangle tube and then just cut extra round pieces to add at both ends instead of just having it on the bottom, and then added a zipper and specific strapping. So, oh, I got cat fur on my nose. I will put a card up here if you want to watch the video on the duffel bag, and I'll put a card at the end of this if you want to go and watch that. But I did lengthen this roll top bag more than the pattern because I wanted to just use up as much of this lining fabric as possible. And obviously it got donated to the thrift store after being used for something else. So I kind of just evened out the edges of this swath of fabric after I ironed it out, because we're adults here and we press things definitely most of the time, usually. So I'd say it was about 1.5 times the height of the initial bag pattern that I did, but you can make it as long as you want. And obviously if you don't have a pattern, this is super easy to put together. I already have the stuff measured out and I like the size that this gives. So rather than making more work for myself, I'm trying to work smarter, not harder. But you just figure out how big you want your tube to be, and then you measure around the circumference of it, and then you just cut a circle that size. It's not rocket science. I have been very intimidated by doing this kind of stuff before. So honestly, even if your circle is too big and you stitch around like that, if you're gonna err in one direction, if you're like nervous about cutting stuff out, make the circle bigger. You can fudge that more than if the tube is too big. But just dive in, like just give it a try, do some trial and error. I didn't know how this kind of thing even stitched together until I just went for it, because I've tried sewing a loop to a circle before just by like winging it, and it's gone fine. So you can do it, I promise. Just to give a little like pattern inventory check, there's 3 rectangle pieces, one of the outer, one of the lining, and one of the quilting batting. There's 3 circle pieces, outer fabric, lining, quilting batting. I have 2 long straps of, you can use whatever material. I used the outer fabric, but if you have like nylon strapping, that'd be great. Anything like that. Are you coming to calm me because the horns are stressing me out? The sounds of the city. So yeah, 2 30-inch straps, 1 7-inch strap, and 2 5-inch straps. Then I have 2 D-rings and 2 tri-bar sliders. These are optional, of course. All of this is optional, to be honest. That are all going to attach to the arm straps. And then I have a 3rd tri-bar slider that's going to go on the front closure, as well as 1 short and 1 long piece of additional strapping. That's just this like red ribbon that I found. This doesn't have to be as industrial strength, but just whatever looks nice. You can use whatever you have laying around though. I will take the time to draw out the measurements, like this, do a little schematics pattern thing and put it up on my Patreon. You don't have to donate to have access to it. It'll just be free. That way, any of the numbers I'm saying, if it's confusing you what the fuck I'm talking about, it'll be laid out hopefully a little more clearly that way. Once I had all of my pieces cut, I did initially forget to cut the quilting and the straps, but then I remembered before I got too far and went back and did all of those. Then I sewed all of the rectangles right sides together on the side edge. When doing something like this, because I've messed it up pretty much every time I've done this style bag, is make sure the edge that the circle goes onto is the one that is not stitched together in this part, because I really have a knack for sewing the wrong edges together and then the circle not being anywhere close to fitting because I wasn't paying enough attention. Notching stuff is helpful, and using a directional fabric is also helpful. So that's the reason I didn't fuck it up this time, is because I had stripes on my side. All right, so all 3 of those tubes sewed together all the way down. You can leave a gap here if you want to turn it out on the lining part of this seam. Just leave a gap part way down, whatever. That's probably an easier option than what I did. I'll show you where I ended up leaving my gap to flip everything out right sides out, but we'll get there when we get there. I notched the halfway point of each of the tubes. So I had like my side seam for reference and then the halfway point from there marked. You can mark more than that. You can like 1/4 it, 1/8 it, whatever you want to do. Make as many notches as you want to help you line things up. And then likewise with the circle pieces of each fabric, I folded it in half and then in half again, and then marked the midpoint notches. Again, you can mark 4 points, 8 points, as many points as you feel necessary. I used those notches to line up each circle to each corresponding tube and then stitched all of those together. I did top stitch that tube side seam down one direction just so it laid flat. I could have pressed it, it would have made it look just as nice, but stitching it down felt like it was reinforcing a little bit more. And also, I had already put my iron away and I didn't feel like taking it back out. So you can solve that problem either way you wish. Then once the circle was attached, for at least the outer fabric, I think I did it for the quilting batting tube as well, just because it's bulkier, is I notched around the seam allowance of the circle once it was sewn on, and then I top stitched from the outside of the bag that seam allowance down, but like made sure the seam allowance was towards the tube side and not the circle side. So I actually have it with me. This is what Roxy was trying to get into a minute ago. I top stitched so the seam allowance is going up this way instead of down this way. I find that that helps it lay nicer when I'm doing a circle to a tube like this. All right, and then for the straps, I cut all of them 3.5 inches wide. I should have done a little bit narrower because I meant to measure the D-rings first, which I think are 1 inch wide. So I should have cut at least 1 inch off of this to start and done like 2.5 inch wide straps, but it was kind of too late by the time I realized this. And this is what happens when you try to do sewing projects flying by the seat of your pants while you're on cold medicine. We got through, it's fine. I'm keeping this one, but the next one I make, I will make sure that that is accounted for. Also, I don't actually know that I like the quilting batting in this the way that I did it. So for what I'm gonna use it for, totally cool. But if I do another one with like duck canvas or denim, I don't think I'll be adding the quilting batting. I'll explain what I intend to use it for once we're done. Once all of my tubes had their bottoms, it was time to add all 3 layers together. I took my outer fabric inside out. Then I stuffed that into the batting layer. So I had both right sides facing the same direction. So it was like inside of the batting tube on the outside, then the right side of the batting tube touching the wrong side of the outer layer tube, and then the outside of the outer layer tube was the very inner layer. Hopefully that makes sense. Here, like, my hope is the visual is making this click. So sorry, I have a sewing channel where I show you how I do the projects I work on, and I cannot explain things to save my life. Forever thank you for hanging out here, because I don't know how y'all follow along. If any of you do actually follow these along, I don't know. I appreciate the company either way. I'm definitely a hands-on learner, so like I can't listen to people or read instructions to get through something anyway. I just kind of have to do it. That's my excuse for why I'm like this. Anyway, once I had all those 3 layers together, I started to put the top loop and the top of the straps in place. And then thankfully I realized before I stitched too much that wait, the top, normally, yes, that's where the strapping goes if I have like a bag with a flap over the top or something, but the top of this tube is not the top of the bag because we're gonna roll it down. So before I went too far, I literally had to unpick like 2 stitches. I took all that out and realized every bit of strapping was gonna have to get top stitched on after I closed all of this up. I stitched around the top edge of the bag. This is where I left my gap, was just somewhere along the way so that I was able to flip everything out at the top edge because I knew I was gonna top stitch that down after, and that would make it look nice as well as close this seam up. Whichever way you wanna flip your bag out, either on the inside of the lining somewhere down here, leaving a gap, or along this top edge here, whatever suits your fancy. Then I just kind of futzed around with rolling down the top to a height that seemed reasonable, and then I marked with a little chalk pen thing where I wanted that little loop to go. So I laid it flat like this and just stitched across a number of times to kind of reinforce that. And then I just guessed a width. I often measure things by just like 1 or 2 finger widths, like it's a glass of whiskey, to give gaps between things. So I did like 1 index finger apart from this top loop to the top of the strap, like the arm strap. Everything's a strap, I guess. So then I stitched those and made them go downwards. So these are kind of opposing directions. And I just folded the raw edges under and then stitched over that so that nothing was gonna stick out. but I didn't like serge the raw edges or do any kind of other seam finishes for it. I just kind of hid it out of the way and reinforced over top, so it's not flapping around anywhere. I see bags like that all the time, so why can't I keep things that simple for myself? Then I decided to mess around with narrowing these straps at the bottom, so I did fold these edges under. This is also going to be taking a lot of the weight and strain and pressure, so I also wanted to reinforce this really well. But this is the width I wish all of the straps had been, but I had already stitched all of this stuff on and didn't want to take it apart because I was very much losing steam by this point in the project. It was getting interrupted a bunch, so I needed to get it done. It's still going to work for what I want, but this was a good trial run for like if I put this stuff in my Etsy shop or like sell it at in-person events. More on that later, by the way, because when you see this, I have an event both Saturday and Sunday of like this current weekend. I'll have details in the description so you can check it out if you just want to like peruse in a different browser while you listen to me ramble about finishing this project. But anyway, I put a D-ring in the middle of this bottom strap and then stitched the loop down. Did that on each side. The arm straps are a little closer at the top of the bag and then widen a bit down to the bottom because I notice most backpacks do that. They like start closer at the neck, which makes sense because it starts kind of behind your shoulders and then the bottom of the bag kind of like loops around your sides. So it needs a little bit more room down there. Then here's me struggling to put the main strap through the tri-bar. Every time I struggle with doing these and I don't know when I will learn how to use one of these goddamn things. Also, the strap being the littlest bit too wide did not help me. We got it done and then I was trying to figure out where to anchor it on the arm strap and then decided most of the backpacks that I have, it's just kind of bunched up at the end, like folded over a number of times so that it won't come back through the tri-bar, but it's not actually sewn down anywhere else on the strap. So you can shorten this as far as you want. There's no restriction to where this is gonna go because we got like a free agent down here. Does that make sense? So it's just restricting ourselves less doing it this way. When it's an option, I do really prefer having it on this way. So then once all of that was attached, it was time to decide where the closure was gonna go. So I once again rolled down the top nice and evenly and then marked underneath the rolled part where the like anchor point was going to be for this bottom loop. So this guy down here that's holding onto the tri-bar. I made another little loop, stitched it down, put the tri-bar through the loop just on like the middle bar before I stitched anything down. And then I added this other tab just a little ways down from this top loop here. Made sure it was long enough to go over the rolled up bit. And now I've kind of futzed around with how to close this. My plan for this and why I didn't use snaps for this particular one, though I might for future versions. Like if I make a mini version of this, I might use like cam snaps. So this is not like the most secure closure, but I'm planning to carry this bag around and put Bert's little like adventure blanket in here and his water dish and a snack dish and some cookies and stuff like that in here and some like wet wipes because I gotta wipe his butt because he's old. But having this be like his little adventure bag, or if I use it for my own stuff, it'll be for like clothes when I go away for the weekend. Something like that. It is not gonna be a high security situation. I figured out that if I loop it over the top, over the middle bar, under like this, and then right, okay, that's how I did it. So just doing that initial slide through and then bringing it back up through the top and letting it hang down that way. I don't think that looks too bad. Obviously there's nothing in it, so it's just like extra floppy. The other thing I'm hoping to do with this bag, as Roxy tried to demonstrate earlier, is that I kind of want to see if Bert will like nest into this. So if I take him out somewhere, he has like a ready-made little cat tent to hide into because he loves to burrow. So hopefully, as you're watching this, I will have done some field research and tested this out and seen if he likes it. I think this is a good size for him.
What's in there? Oh, amazing. What are you doing? Is this for you? You like it? Hold on. Hold on. Hold on.
So again, I don't know what to call this bag. So if you have any recommendations, please let me know. Oh, and as for markets, if you are around the New England area, Saturday, I'm gonna be at Totally Bazaar Market at Mill Number 5 in Lowell, Massachusetts. Market goes from noon to 5. And then Sunday, December 4th, I'm actually helping put it together, but I'm also going to be peddling my wares at Rockingham Brewing Company, which is a brewery that I absolutely adore, but also work part-time at because they're my favorite brewery. We are doing a market from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Tap room's open till 6. Some of us may stay a little later. There will be cupcakes, there will be wine. Specifically, I think they're gonna bring some mulled wine, this vineyard that's in town. There's gonna be a food truck, and some of my very dear friends are gonna be selling their stuff there, and I'm so excited to hang out with them, if nothing else. But I'm gonna have my hand-sewn goods and some garments, and by goods I mean bags. I have a lot of bags because I'm trying to focus on the custom garments and accessories aspect of my small business, because that's what I say I do, and then sometimes I kind of get lost in the weeds with that. Lots of bags, like keychain bags, tote bags, a lot of fun little pouches. I will have some fabric that I printed myself that I'm so goddamn proud of and absolutely love, and like that's what the direction I want to go even more from here. So we'll see how that stuff does, I guess. I hope people like it, but we'll see. Friend Tara is doing some wearable sculpture, really cool jewelry that, like, I've never seen anything like it in the best way possible. It's amazing workmanship. My friend Shane does leather working, so he has like wallets and belts and bags, just beautiful hand stitching, and there's really cool custom like water marble designs on some of the leather pieces. And my friend Jamie is doing some needle felting, some watercolor painting. I think she's gonna have some pottery there as well. And yeah, there's gonna be someone making cupcakes, and obviously really wonderful beer that I'm excited about. So if you want to come hang out at any point, those are the events I have up for this weekend. So if you're seeing this on Friday the 2nd and you're around the 3rd or 4th, please come say hi. Additionally, I'm going to be doing another Mill Number 5 event, another Oddity Marketplace on December 10th from 12 to 5. So if you can't do it this weekend, please come hang out next weekend. On that note, because I'm going to be scrambling to get stuff together for that market, I am going to take next Friday off from posting a Sewing Nerd video. We'll be back to it the 16th. I think that's the next Friday I will be back. Rather than guess the date, how about I tell you, oh, that's November. Yes, December 16th, I will be back with another video. Hopefully it's the big one that I was talking about earlier. I don't want to put pressure on myself. I want it to be good. I'd rather have it be good and come out later than rush it and not have it be good. You know? It's easily one of the coolest things I've ever done, and hopefully it helps some folks. So I don't know what that pitch in my voice was just then. I'm nervous about it. Can you tell? Are you getting a weird energy from me? Oh man. Well, thank you for hanging out. I'm gonna go snuggle these kitties and then take some more cold medicine and then go the fuck to sleep. And as I have said a million times and will continue to say a million more, it is only because of everyone over on Patreon that I get to do the stuff that I get to do. Like, you are all making this happen. It is literally me living my dream. Only in a part-time capacity, but that's still more than I ever thought I would ever get. So thank you for making that happen. And all of you, not just people that donate to Patreon, but I appreciate this community so hard, and you're all great. And I appreciate when you share projects in the Discord and tag me and stuff on Instagram and Twitter, RIP. I'm still on there, but who knows what is happening with that app. And even just shooting the shit in the comments of the videos. I really appreciate people's thoughts. And oh, unrelated to everything else, if you are a Great British Baking Show bake-off person, and no spoilers for people that haven't seen this current season, if you are sad that that is over for this season, there is a show on HBO Max called The Big Brunch, and it's similar energy. I really, really enjoyed it, and I got emotional multiple times during that show. It's hosted by Dan Levy and Sola El Whaley from Bon Appetit days. Remember that whole thing? Man, they were on top of the world and then everything crumbled. Oh God, my cold is taking over. Okay, I hope you're all having a great December, and I will see you back here with another video in 2 Fridays. Thank you so much for hanging out. This is just where he lives now. I don't think he's gonna come out of there willingly. He can physically get out, but just his heart doesn't want to.